Okay, this is a reaction video. This is from Passport 2. Ways Germany has changed our perspectives, reverse culture shock. Um, Now, I lived abroad before. I lived in Bermuda for 4 years. Those are my first memories are from ages 2 to I think 6 is when I lived in Bermuda before I came to South Carolina and now up in Ohio. But uh, so I have lived abroad before, but not to the extent that these guys did. I think it's a little bit different in Germany. So let's find out what this has to offer.
We just returned from 2 weeks in the United States, spending Christmas with our families, and while we were there are some things that we hadn't noticed we'd gotten used to while living in Germany, and also some things after living our whole lives in the United States that we had never noticed about life in the US that kind of shocked us.
Look, when I was in Germany for the week that I was there, I noticed some things that I won't say it shocked me there, but there was I'm trying to remember some of the things that I saw that were different. But I'm kind of curious to see what these people say.
Reverse culture shock is when you have been away from your familiar culture and then you come back to it and you just realize things that you had never noticed before about it. And we've seen some pretty dramatic definitions about what it is, but we did identify with the things that once were familiar, now seeming a little unfamiliar.
And there were some videos that I had seen on YouTube before and other people talking about reverse culture shock whenever they go home, and I've always kind of dismissed it thinking, you're being overly dramatic, or you're just showing off that you travel all the time. So that's why it was a little bit shocking whenever we got back and I realized that it's actually a real thing. And there were some things also about being back in the US that aren't necessarily culture shocks, but we just hadn't realized that we had gotten used to and accustomed to living abroad, and going back home, it just kind of threw us off a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't have any of that obviously because I'm only there for a week. You see some things that are different that you don't see in the United States. Like for example, just and these aren't big deal. When I went to like and got a drink like in the United States, um, when I got a Sprite, they give usually fill it with ice. In Germany, they gave it to you neat without any ice in it. That was something that was I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't that not like these weren't big deals that I was going, oh my god, I can't believe it was just still different.
One of the biggest that I didn't realize I had gotten really used to here in Germany was the difference in their work-life balance and how things completely shut down on holidays and for the most part shut down on Sundays as well. So one of the first things that we did when we were home was we went and got flu shots. This was on Christmas Eve and this place was packed. There were so many people at this Walgreens, a lot of people working and a lot of people there shopping and getting things done. Also, one Sunday, I thought about, oh, I need to go run errands, but it's Sunday. I can't go do that. But then I realized, no, everything's open here. We can go do whatever we need.
Yeah, in the United States, I mean, even on holidays now, there are some things that are open. Things don't shut down all the way in holidays because they just don't. And yeah, on Sundays, a lot of things are open. People are still doing shopping and moving things around on Sundays. So that may be a little bit different if you from different between Germany and the United States.
Today.
Yeah, there was a lot of people too in the Walgreens that we overheard that were talking about how they were trying to do some last minute Christmas shopping, and they had gone from store to store to store, and they were talking to each other about just, wow, don't go to this store, don't go to that store, because it's just crammed with people right now. And that's something that, like Aubrey was saying about the work-life balance, that we think that Germany does seem to have a little bit of a better perspective on, and it's that time spent away from work with families or with friends, or just simply just getting away and just relaxing, and they take that time for themselves rather than.
And that's really a matter of perspective. I guess if I was in Germany and I had a lot of days, I'm not saying that everybody has a lot of days off, but you have a lot of days off, and then you might like it better. But it's something that we Americans have gotten used to.
Constantly work like in the US.
However, it is pretty convenient that things are open all the time. Like on Christmas Day, whenever we forgot an ingredient for something that we were making, we were able to go to the grocery store because it was open.
It's pretty common in the US too for people to get just Christmas Eve or Christmas Day off, or even just Christmas Day. And a lot of people will try to take their vacation time, which it gets complicated whenever you only have 2 weeks and you end up having to use it around your Christmas vacation. Therefore, you don't really have anything for the rest of the year. We've had some family who on Christmas Day were having to debate whether they would go back into work the next day or not. They had taken off, but they weren't sure if they should go in. That's just kind of what happens in the US when it comes to work, is you have to end up figuring out, do I spend time with my family on the holidays or do I drive back home so I can get to work the following day? Whereas here in Germany, we've seen that the legal holidays given by the government.
Yeah, I'm looking at this right now. In the United States, I think there's like 10 days. You have New Year's Day, um, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, um, President's Day, Memorial Day, now it's Juneteenth, 4th of July, um, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. So there's 9, but there's a whole slew of things here that I'm looking at.
Is Christmas Day and the day after Christmas. But from our experience of just looking around town before we took off to go back home for the States, really a ton of things were shutting down, if not for the whole week, but for multiple weeks. Our car is already in the mechanic shop. It's a whole story we don't want to get into. But the mechanic called just a few days before the first weekend before Christmas and said that they would be shutting down for the next 2 weeks. Not just that the mechanic was taking a vacation for 2 weeks, but the entire business was shutting down for 2 weeks, and they would not get to our car until they got back from that break.
Growing up, a lot of times,
And that's so unusual in the United States. That is just absolutely so unusual because in the United States, everybody is generally working. Sometimes they give you Christmas Eve off. It really depends on the circumstance, but usually they give you. It really just depends on the business. But they give you Thanksgiving off, which is I think the fourth Thursday in November, and then it's like you work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, have Thanksgiving off, and then they expect you back at work on Friday.
my family would go see a movie on Christmas Day, and it was really fun, and I really enjoyed doing that. But now I feel kind of bad because that means someone had to work on Christmas Day.
Being back in the States, we also saw the very common stereotype in America, and especially the South. In Oklahoma, where we're from, was the hospitality and also just people talking all the time to each other, even if they don't know each other. A common stereotype about Germans, and it's actually pretty true, is that they do not enjoy small talk. And you can see that a lot whenever you go into stores, and when you go into a German store, is
Yesterday, I went to an NFL game in Cleveland, and the guy sat down next to me and just started jawing back and forth, and he and I ended up having a conversation. And people around me just started talking to each other who didn't even know each other, just saw them there for the first time and just had a long conversations. I hear they don't do that over in Europe. Like if you go sit down to somebody, you generally don't talk to each other.
very business. You walk in, they ask what you need, you tell them, they get it to you, and then you're out. It's very efficient. But in the U.S., we noticed it being a little bit different. For instance, whenever we went to Walgreens to get our flu shots, we ended up staying around for a little bit while longer because the nurse who gave us the shot wanted to talk to us for a while. We talked about traveling in Europe, her past trips that she went on in Italy, and her experiences, and ours also traveling. It went on for a long time, and then that just kind of went across the board in a lot of the places that we visited. It's just people stopping to talk, going into a gas station to go to the restroom, and the clerk standing there and asking, "How are you?" and then, "How's it going?" and talking and talking. It was just very friendly everywhere that we were going.
Along those lines, I also enjoyed being able to understand what people are saying all around me. I think we kind of got used to not being able to understand what people are saying. Donnie's been learning German, but I still haven't yet, and that's the goal of mine. But usually when we're out and about, I don't know what people are saying. But while we were at home, I was able.
Again, the good thing about Germany is a lot of people there speak English, so you're able to get around with things. But look, people, small talk is a big thing in the United States, and one of the things I've noticed on some of these videos, the people have said, or the Europeans said, that Americans love to talk, and yes, I guess we do.
Able to kind of hear conversations, know what's going on around me, and eavesdrop a little bit.
If you've been watching our videos, one thing that you know is that we just recently bought a car here in Germany, and we've been able to drive quite a bit on the roads here, and we have gotten spoiled with the German drivers here. They are extremely good drivers, and I would even dare to say they are much more superior than American drivers. Not just superior, but
Now, I can't speak to that, but I'm sure he's right. Americans drive everywhere. When I was in Germany, we didn't need a car because we had the trains, and it looked like a lot of people were using the trains. But I don't know if it's because not many people drive in Germany, or if they do drive in Germany, they're just very more tentative of what they're doing. I couldn't answer that.
much more superior. And that's one thing that we noticed whenever we were driving around in the U.S. is just the dangerous driving habits that I had never really noticed before. Maybe I just thought it was normal. But like things like people sitting in the left lane on the highways and just driving incredibly slow, and people doing dangerous swerving maneuvers to get around them just because they were sitting there.
I just drove about 2 hours back and forth from Cleveland to Columbus, which is where I'm at. And, a lot of people were, as I was driving, were doing a very good job. There wasn't a whole lot of that, and the roads were generally crowded. Everybody was good, so we didn't have that problem here in Ohio, and generally we don't. But I have seen what he's talking about. Drove about 1,500 miles last year when I was in South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming, and that was open area. And but you'd see people where there's not a lot of cars around do crazy things like that. Just not even put on their turn signal when they're moving lanes, or drive at an extremely fast pace, or even drive it slow in the left hand lane and use the right lane for passing. You'd see things like that occasionally.
We even had one instance where a semi-truck suddenly swerved and veered out in front of us on the highway for no apparent reason. But there's all of these little things in contrast to Germans, where they are very considerate drivers. Like the left lane is exclusively for fast drivers and for passing. They're not really going to pass you on the right side because it's forbidden. Or if there's even like traffic jams, they all scoot to the side so that emergency vehicles can get up the middle of a two-lane road. Just that and a lot more just really seems like they have a much better grip on driving than in the US. So it was just a little bit shocking. Not obviously terrifying, but
I can't speak for German drivers since I was never on the road with them, except for the occasional time I was on a bus from the airport to get to the train station. But irregardless, I'm sure he's right.
it was definitely something that we noticed.
Another thing I did not realize we had gotten really used to here in Germany is their recycling and trash disposal systems. If you have not heard, they are really, really big on recycling here.
And we've done a whole video on this topic, so if you haven't watched that one, check it out because it is very extensive and there's a very thick book that we have to follow to do the trash system, but we've gotten used to it now.
Yeah, like it's become just part of our daily life now. And so it felt weird when we were on the airplane and the stewardess was coming by with just one trash bag for all of our trash. And we had our water bottles and we were thinking, wait a second, we put this in here too with the food trash? And it just kind of threw us off for a second. We had a double take. There were also multiple times when I had some kind of recyclable trash and I went to rinse it out, but then realized, oh, I don't need to do this. Or when we were
Now, in the United States, they do have recycle bins. I have one. I have a trash one for my trash and one for my recycling. And every Wednesday I put out my recycling, and every Friday I put out my trash. So it's not, there may be different places that they do it differently, but we have recycle bins as well in the United States that I use, as well as trash.
we were at a restaurant or at a public place when we needed to throw something away, there weren't all the different spaces to throw them away and the different ways to separate it. It was usually just one trash can or just a trash and recycle, just two.
And even when we went shopping at home or went to the grocery store, and they were using tons of plastic bags when we were bagging up our groceries to take them home, whereas here we've really gotten used to bringing our own baskets or bags to get our groceries home.
And again, you can do that in the United States too. You can bring your own bag and use that to take it with you. You don't have to use what they provide for you.
And also we noticed whenever we were at our family's house and we were eating sandwiches or getting sliced bread, that the stores were starting to actually double bag the bread with 2 plastic bags to keep the freshness. And that just seems like an easy way to cut the waste and also increase their profits by not eating up that money by putting 2 bags on one bread when they don't need to do that.
This one isn't necessarily a reverse culture shock or even a difference between Germany and the US, but as expats now, something that we have gotten used to is having to think about what time zone we're in and what time zone the people we want to call or text are in, and have to think through that time difference of.
And again, that's something that a lot of people generally don't deal with. Now, I deal with it to some extent because I have a cousin who I'm very close with, who I talk to often, and he lives in California, and he's 3 hours behind me. But most of the people that I talk to are in my area in the Eastern time zone. So, but there are situations, that again, the United States is a big country. You have East, Central, Mountain, and Pacific, and Alaska has its own, and Hawaii has its own. But it's generally those 4 time zones that you're dealing with.
When to call or when to text, or even not expecting to receive a text back until way later because they're asleep.
That was definitely something that I didn't realize I was in the mindset of until we got back home, and it was kind of a weird thing. I pointed out to Aubrey that whenever I would text someone, I would toss my phone to the side, and I would just kind of not expect an answer back for hours and hours later, because here I am used to waiting until they actually woke up whenever we had already been in our day for a little while. But we would get text backs pretty immediately, but it would just kind of throw us off that suddenly we had these answers, and we could get plans moving a little bit faster.
Yeah, because you're in the same time zone as they are.
But whenever we do these videos where we highlight the differences between the US and other countries, or specifically Germany where we live now, we hope what we're getting across to you is that differences don't necessarily mean right or wrong. Some countries do things one way and other countries do some things the other way. But what we've really figured out is that no country really has everything figured out. And these are just our experiences that we've seen and just kind of some funny things that we've picked up on and noticed, and really normally pretty trivial matters.
And it's also just interesting coming from these two Western countries where I would assume that a lot of their cultural things are pretty similar, but we've gotten to experience and learn about a lot of these differences that they have.
But we hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button, also subscribe. And also, if you've ever experienced reverse culture shock or just little things whenever you went back to your home country after visiting another that you hadn't really picked up on before, leave those in the comments and let us know. And also, like Aubrey said, I'm learning German, so if you Germans are watching, leave your comments in German and let me practice a little bit. So thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you in our next video.
Yeah, this is from Passport 2. Please click like, share, and subscribe for them. And yeah, that's interesting. This was a reverse culture shock coming back to the United States. You know, when I came back to the United States from 1 week in Germany, I was like looking at things and judging how things were good or what I liked were different. Now, I didn't see a whole lot of culture shock, obviously, because I was only there for a week. And the only thing I noticed was that the drinks, you didn't put ice in. At least I didn't get ice on. And that was in Berlin and that was in Frankfurt when I went to the only two times I went to a fast food restaurant there. But still, this is interesting and different perspective. And I'm keeping my German perspective going on these. I'm going to maybe do a couple more videos on Germany or Americans who live in Germany and go from there. But again, this is fun. Passport 2. Please click like, share, and subscribe for them. And please click like, share, and subscribe for me. And have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.